Pastor Steve Wyertz here. Everybody take your big King James Bibles, wave them over your head, make God glad and the devil mad, and repeat after me. Well, on the count of three, we got to draw our swords. The Word of God is the sword of the Spirit. 1, 2, 3. This is my Bible. This is God talking to me. Anything my Bible says I am, I am. Anything my Bible says I can do, I can do. Anything my Bible says to do, I will do it as soon as I see it in the Word, because I am a doer of the Word, not just a hearer. Therefore, I am not deceived. And anything the Bible says happened, happened. Added that one in here. Okay, so the last time we covered the giants. And today we're going to talk about the flood. So we can just start right back up here, Genesis chapter 5. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. He was sorry he even made this place. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and creeping thing and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And we talked about why Noah had found grace in the eyes of the Lord. The Bible said he was perfect and upright in his generations. Watch this, verse 9. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. And also when Noah was born, his father Lamech prophesied over him, spoke into existence that Noah would be the one to comfort us. It's back in Genesis 5:29 concerning the curse that was on the earth. And I don't have to go there. And I just disappeared again. All right. So let's just keep reading here. Now, last video, we covered the giants. And obviously there was a flood because we have these giants all over the earth. So now I'm going to prove to you from archaeology that, they found Noah's Ark, and I'm going to show you pictures of it. So, but if there wasn't a flood, these giants wouldn't be stuck all over the earth. Now, the bones that were inside of the giants, the salt water, broke those down, and that's where we get our fossil fuels from. That's the bones became oil. Oil is biological. And so we're running off of this fuel from a destroyed world, from a flood, and that's where we get our oil from. And then the rest of their bodies got fossilized, and they're stuck all over the earth. And I showed that to you. So we're taking it a step further now. Obviously, the earth was flooded because these giants are all over the earth that drowned and got stuck in the mud. And now we're going to take a closer look at the actual story of Noah's Ark. And so, verse 10, Genesis 6:10, and Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. I'm going to scroll down here. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Room shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And gopher wood means it's laminated wood. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make of it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, and the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. Now, the Bible says that Noah was educated in Egypt, and so it was an Egyptian cubit that Noah laid the ark out to. And so people say, man, Noah's Ark's not the exact dimensions. This is why this book is so important. If the Bible says that Noah was educated in Egypt, then he was educated in Egypt. Actually, the Hebrew cubit didn't even exist at that time. They hadn't even become a nation yet. before Noah. So Noah was educated in Egypt. He used an Egyptian cubit. And the boat that was found on the mountains of Ararat, not Mount Ararat itself, measures exactly what is written in the Bible. Now watch this. Make thee an ark of gopher wood, which means laminated. Room shalt thou make it in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make of it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits, breadth 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and a cubit shall thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof with lower, second, and third stories. Thou shalt make it. So this door would actually open up to 3 different stories depending on how you opened it. But with thee I will establish, let me see. And behold, verse 17. And behold, I do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh wherein is the breath of life. From under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee I will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. God had to honor what Lamech spoke over his son, so God's making a covenant with Noah. Notice he says, but with thee will I establish my covenant. Okay. Of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark. To keep them alive with thee, they shall be male and female. Verse 20, of fowls after their kind, of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, 2 of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. God directed those animals to him. 2 of every kind, right? And 7 of clean beasts, which it'll say later. And we're getting back to this sacrifice system again that I showed you, that God showed Adam on day 1 when he sinned, how without the shedding of blood there's no remission of sins, and God showed Adam how to make a sacrifice in order to come into his presence, and clothed Adam and Eve with the skins. So Adam and Eve was wearing leather. All right. I've had this jacket for like 14 years. All right. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for thee and for them. Thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him. So did he. All right. Genesis 7. And the Lord said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by 7s, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female. Of fowls, and the reason they brought, every time I click on this, I disappear. The reason that he brought the clean animals, and see, so God had already educated them on these are clean animals, these are proper for sacrifice, and these are unclean animals, and it gets into it in great detail once you get into Moses and the portable tabernacle in the wilderness, which once again I'm going to show you the rock that Moses struck and water came out, and all this. God backs up his word. All this stuff now is being brought to the surface. And believe it or not, it's already been presented years ago. Most of this stuff was found back in the 80s. And even the church has rejected it, you know. And so that just tells me, who's pastoring your church? I mean, if they don't believe that Noah's Ark has been found, or the Ark of the Covenant has been found, or the Red Sea crossing has been found, and if they think it's all a hoax, I'm telling you, you need to get a new pastor. Somebody that actually cares about his congregation. And it wants to equip you with tools so that you can reach the lost. I don't even understand it, how Christians don't even know, you know, that this stuff is around and that people aren't talking about it. But the reason he brought 7 animals of the clean ones is because immediately, and we're going to read it, after the flood, after the ark came to rest on land, that Noah made sacrifices unto the Lord. Now, he changed the diet plan, you know, a few chapters after that, where man can then eat meat. Every beast of the earth, God said. So he brought the 7 because they made animal sacrifices once a year. And you'll see it when we get over to Moses. The high priest would go in and he'd perform all the rituals and make the sacrifices. And then he would sprinkle the blood of the lamb, on the altar. And the people's sins would be forgiven for one more year. So if Moses was making sacrifices once a year to God, so that God could look at him as if he had never sinned. And then that gave him 7 years to have the other animals multiply on the earth. Because if we just started eating everything and he didn't bring in the 7, we wouldn't have the animals that we do today. They'd have been extinct a long time ago. So he had to let the animal population go out before man, before we started eating meat. And that's the whole thing right there. All right. Of every clean beast thou shalt take unto thee by 7s, male and his female. And of the beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female. Notice the words here. Of fowl and also of air by 7s, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. For yet 7 days will I cause it to rain upon the earth. 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according to all that the Lord commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. And Noah went in, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him into the ark because of the waters of the flood, of clean beasts and of beasts that are not clean, of fowls and of everything that creepeth upon the earth. There went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as God has commanded Noah. Let me scroll up here. When I click on that, I disappear for some reason. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And the selfsame day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth and the sons of Noah and Noah's wife and 3 wives of his sons with them into the ark. They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. And they that went in male and female of all flesh, as God had commanded him. And the Lord shut him in. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased, and bare up the ark, and it was lift up above the earth. And the waters prevailed, and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went up. And the ark went upon the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and mountains were covered. So he made sure that the mountains were completely covered. At least 15 cubits, the highest mountain on this planet, right? And all flesh died, verse 21, that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of beast and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostrils was a breath of life, and of all that was in dry land died. And every living substance was destroyed, which is upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle and the creeping thing and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. Okay. And God remembered Noah and every living thing. And it doesn't mean like he forgot about him and remembered him. It's because his father spoke that over him. And God honors his word. And, and the authority that he gave man is true. So God knew that what his father spoke and that he was going to bring it to pass. It's just awesome. And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained, and the waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of the 150 days where the waters abated. And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. It does not say on the top of Mount Ararat. Which brings me back to this. This is how accurate this Bible is. The mountains. So there's Mount Ararat. There's a whole chain of mountains there. Okay? So you have this real high peak like this, and if, the boat's coming in or whatever, it's going to, whatever. It rested in the mountains of Ararat. And people are always trying to, the powers that be don't want you to believe that the Bible's true. This Noah's Ark thing, it's all been covered up, even by the church. Like I said, the devil is probably pastoring your church. Sorry, but in probably 95%, I think it would be safe to say that, these people just, I don't know, they're just blinded, I guess. But, so the mountains, bring attention to that, of Ararat. Now watch this. Ark rested in the 7th month, 7th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat, and the waters decreased continually until the 10th month, and the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and set forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the earth. And he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Aha. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot. Figured out how to do it without me disappearing. And she returned unto him in the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her into the ark. And he stayed yet another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came in unto him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. And he stayed yet other 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the 1st month, the 1st day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth. 601st year, 1st month, 1st day of the month. The waters were dried up from off the earth. I have to look into that number. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the 2nd month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, was the earth dried. And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth out of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh. Both of fowl and of cattle and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his son's wife, and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, and every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kinds, went forth out of the ark. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord. Genesis 8:20. And took of every clean beast, and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled the sweet savor. And the Lord said, you can smell the steak cooking on the grill. Right? It's awesome. And the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Like I said, when Adam sinned, the Holy Spirit checked out and the spirit of Satan checked in. And God said it right here. Imagine from the time you're born, right? You got this spirit on the inside of you. That's what Jesus had to come, pay the price for your salvation. And by putting your faith in him, then you and him become one, and your spirit becomes one. So now God can get his Holy Spirit back into you. And before we finish these videotapes, you're going to be filled with the Holy Ghost and operating in miracles and into a relationship with God, hearing God's voice, and becoming an actual moving part of his body on this earth to bring as many people as we can with us. We got 11 years left according to my calendar. Supposed to be preaching the gospel here, but 2020, 2031. I just tell you right now, the Bible ends. It's a calendar of events. It's counting down, and it ends in 2031. Okay, so let's go back to Noah built an altar, 8:20, unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, neither will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done. So the whole thing he's not going to do. There's floods and there's different things, but not the whole earth. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air. He's giving this dominion back to Noah. Well, he never lost it. He's just stating it. Upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. When you go hunting, it's a great scripture. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb have I given you all things. Here's the diet plan. Changed. Okay? But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, you shall not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require. And at the hand of man, at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. You kill somebody, okay? It's not good. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he him. Made he man. And you, be ye fruitful, multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. And God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and every living creature that is with you. Of the fowl, let's go here. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall there be all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there be any more a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the water shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, This is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. There's another archaeological discovery, which is the rainbow, which shows up every time it rains. Almost, when the sun comes back out. Right? They never had a rainbow in the clouds until then, because it didn't rain. Remember back in Genesis, he caused a mist to come up from the ground and cover the whole face of the earth. It never rained until then. So God set this rainbow. It's an archaeological discovery, just like the giants, right? Just like Noah's Ark, which I'm going to show you here pretty soon. And we have the rainbow. People overlook that one, you know. And the gay people put it on the back of their cars. But I'm going to show you Sodom and Gomorrah probably here, which was also found. And God rained down sulfur, basically, fire and brimstone on the city and destroyed the whole place. And so the rainbow is a covenant that God will not flood and kill the whole earth. Sodom and Gomorrah happened after the flood, regardless of what you watch on TV. I'm always leery about these things that they put in Noah's Ark. It's taken from the Quran or something. Sodom and Gomorrah happened after the flood, and God destroyed that city because of their sin. And so, it's an example upon whom the ends of the earth will come. They burned, right? So if you're into that stuff, you better get out of it or you're going to burn. Sorry, I'm telling you that because I love you, not because I hate you. All right. And God said unto Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. And the sons of Noah went forth from the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. And I don't know how much farther I'm going to go. So then it goes into the generations of Noah. Now notice that the Bible said that the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. This is Noah's Ark right here. There's the point. You see this? This is exactly the 300 Egyptian cubits. The width is a little bit greater because a decaying boat splays a little bit. So the width is a little bit wider than what's in the Bible, but that's common in a boat that's been there. But this is found exactly in the mountains of Ararat, along with huge anchor stones, and he weighted this down, and they found a complete timber, which they cut out, was laminated wood in one of these sections here. You can see the ribs going down this way, and they have pop rivets made out of materials. I mean, they thought maybe a missile had crashed there because remember the technology. Let me get back up here and talk about this a little bit, and then I'm going to let this run so you guys can see this. So they found these pop rivets that were at every joint, and then they mapped them out and they strung this across, and it's on the video. But the metals that these pop rivets or whatever rivets were made out of, they thought were modern, like to this day. So they're wondering if a missile had crashed here. But this, once they laid out all the ribbons and they used metal detectors and marked it all out, and this boat was put together by man. This is a man-made object. And so since I got to go to work, 7:25, 20 minutes I get out the door. I'm going to let this run for a while and let you guys watch this. On the internet.
On June 20th, 1987, in the mountains of Ararat, Turkey officially recognized the discovery of Noah's Ark. Located on a mountainside about 15 miles south of the volcanic Mount Ararat, the remains of the massive ship were dedicated during a special ceremony. Guest of honor was Ron Wyatt, due to his 10 years of research at the site. The story began in 1957 during the Cold War, when aerial photos taken of eastern Turkey while searching for Soviet missile bases revealed a strange boat-shaped formation in the mountains about 6,300 feet above sea level. Life magazine reported on the story after an expedition from the United States went to the site in 1960. Blowing holes in the strange formation, the members of the team came away with the conclusion that there was nothing there of any archaeological interest. Ron Wyatt, like many others, read the story, but he was of the opinion that the site needed further exploration. There had been many claims of seeing Noah's Ark on the volcanic Mount Ararat, but Ron knew that it was a stratovolcano, and he believed that nothing would have been able to survive there. He noted the biblical account of the location of the ark. And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. Urartu, the biblical Ararat, was a large region in eastern Turkey. This location was certainly feasible. But the factor that captured his interest the most was the length given in the Life magazine story. 500 feet. Most people were looking for a 437-foot Noah's Ark based on the Hebrew cubit, but Ron again went to the Bible to learn more. and Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Moses was the author of the Genesis account of the flood. He would have known the cubit of the Egyptians. The Hebrew cubit didn't come into existence until there was a Hebrew nation after Moses' death. The Encyclopedia Britannica stated, "The Egyptian cubit is generally recognized as having been the most ubiquitous or universal standard of linear measurement in the very ancient world. The royal cubit equals 20.62 inches. This would mean Noah's Ark was much longer than 437 feet. 17 years after the Life magazine article, Ron finally made the journey to Turkey. When he saw the boat-shaped object, he saw that it looked just like it did in 1960, and he knew he would need permission to excavate in order to learn anything about what was beneath the surface. So he returned home and enlisted a number of friends to help him pray for an earthquake to reveal more. In late 1978, he learned of an earthquake in eastern Turkey and returned in August of 1979. When he arrived, he was overwhelmed by what he saw. The earthquake had dropped the soil around the object, and a large crack extended the entire length. He could see what looked to him like the remains of decayed rib timbers along the now exposed sides. Also, he was able to measure the depth of the debris and measure the length. It was 515 feet, or exactly 300 Royal Egyptian cubits. He was now convinced. He carefully combed the surface, looking for evidence that it was a shipwreck. He saw what he believed were petrified structures of an ancient ship whose deck had collapsed. He saw what looked like deck joists and deck support timbers. Of particular interest was the fact that the ship appeared to be impaled on a large outcropping of limestone. He concluded that this indicated that the ship had slid into the rock from another location. Before he made his first trip to Turkey, he had done an experiment in a nearby lake, building mountain configurations out of rocks and floating a boat model by them to see the reaction of the boat. He noted that a crescent shape caused the water to pull the boat into the crescent where the boat remained and gently floated. The present location did not fit with the results of that experiment, so Ron decided to examine the area above the boat shape. The site was in a moving mud flow, so he followed the mud flow up the mountainside. About 1.5 miles up, he found a crescent shape of mountains. He saw that the mud flow began up here. When he arrived near the top of the ridge, he found an ancient stele, like an ancient billboard, which depicted the boat shape, the familiar mountain ridge, several birds, and 8 faces within the boat shape. Clearly, this was a reference to the ship of Noah and its 8 survivors. He noticed a taller mountain peak on the stele that was no longer visible from that location. He concluded that it was a small volcano that had erupted long after Noah's Ark had landed, and that it had carried the ship down the mountainside about 1 mile, where it was impaled on the limestone outcropping, then covered in lava. The lava then encased the ship like a time capsule. The volcano then collapsed after expending its lava and was no longer visible. He then theorized that as the lava began to decay, water seeped in and allowed the remains to be petrified or fossilized by the process called mineral replacement. Molecule by molecule would be washed away from the remains and replaced by molecules from the objects and substances above it. As he examined the area within the crescent shape, he found a large section, 120 by 40 feet, approximately, of what appeared to be fossilized wood in the ground. He believed this to be the bottom of the ship, the original landing site. His conclusion was that when the floodwaters subsided, the ark sank into the muddy earth. This held the ship upright. Then God sent the wind to dry the face of the earth. The portion of the ship that sank into the mud was now firmly embedded in the ground. Many years later, when the lava carried the ship down the mountain, the main body of the ship was ripped loose. Only this section remained in their original location. Around this area that Ron believed to be embedded petrified wood, he found specimens of rock which looked very unique to him. He took several samples, along with several specimens from the boat shape below. Back home, he sent them for analysis. The results showed organic carbon, which indicated that the samples were consistent with decayed and fossilized wood. They also contained metals such as iron and aluminum. The analysis of the strange-looking rock Ron had found about 1.5 miles above the site by the bottom of the ship was clearly the most exciting. His initial analysis had shown it to be metals and not rock. In 1984, Ron met and became friends with Colonel Jim Irwin, the former astronaut. Colonel Irwin was searching for Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat, but he was very gracious and was interested in seeing the boat-shaped site. Ron had brought a metal detector to the site to see if there was a pattern of metal readings. In the presence of Colonel Irwin and others on his team, Ron employed the detectors. He found distinct metal lines down the entire length of the object, while no metal readings were obtained just outside of it. Ron asked Colonel Irwin, who had impressive scientific community connections, if he could have the strange specimen tested. Colonel Irwin sent the specimen to Los Alamos National Labs, where geophysicist John Baumgartner performed the analysis. The results of that analysis captured Dr. Baumgartner's interest. The specimen contained manganese, also titanium and aluminum, among others, and these were not in the form found in nature. Due to the sophistication of the metals, he questioned whether a missile had crashed on the mountainside and Ron had found the remains. The exciting evidences of the metal lines and the analysis of the specimens brought 2 new researchers into the work. Dr. Baumgartner and David Fasselt, a marine salvage expert who knew all about ships and their construction. They both joined the team.
Oh, look at that. Oh, well, wait a minute. Wait, let me get a close-up of that. Kind of,
You want my hand in there for...
Yeah, just to point at those little flakes of iron that are coming out, like right there. There and there. That's a strong reading. Well,
I'd save those frames right there.
Okay. Keep walking. Do you want a measuring tape to measure these things, how far apart they are?
John, as a scientist, might I take the liberty here to ask you, do you really honestly believe that you have been on the remains of Noah's Ark?
I have no doubt in my mind. This has to be a man-made structure. It's full of metal. Metal has a regular pattern to it, and The size of the thing and the shape of the thing is such that it's almost certainly a large boat.
Dr. Baumgardner and Ron scanned the entire site with 3 different types of metal detectors. Placing rocks at each metal reading, they then attached tapes to show the lines. This exciting evidence also attracted the interest of ABC's 2020.
The boat-shaped site was first found and photographed by a Turkish army captain back in 1959. It was quickly explored and dismissed as a freak of nature. But Wyatt, an amateur archaeologist, rekindled interest in it a few years ago. He brought in Dave Fasold, a marine salvage expert, to assess it. The Doomsday Mountain team brought in some high technology to explore the oldest legend of man. They began scanning their site with a molecular frequency generator. It's a device used by surgeons to pinpoint cancer tumors, and it's been used by Fasold to locate underwater treasure. This time, the molecular frequency generator began to pick up a unique pattern of iron lines beneath the earth.
Okay, bring that one up.
They began placing ribbons along those lines. The finished shape, outlined by the ribbons, was that of a huge ship, the approximate length and width of Noah's Ark, as described in the Bible. The fascinating field of ribbons soon attracted higher academic interest.
That looks like iron. Okay.
Dr. John Baumgardner, a physicist with Los Alamos Laboratories, sent samples back to the lab for analysis and confirmed that the metal they were tracing with the ribbons was indeed iron. With the width and the length known, the only remaining question was depth. By locating the depth of the hull, they could determine if the boat-shaped object had the cargo capacity described in the biblical ark. To resolve this final issue, Wyatt and Fasold brought geologist Tom Finner to Turkey with his company's heavy-duty subsurface radar equipment. Gear like this located the black box cockpit recorder on the floor of the frozen Potomac River after the Air Florida crash. It was here, several miles short of the boat-shaped site, that a waiting game began for Finner and the others. The party needed a final go-ahead from the Turkish government to complete their probe of Doomsday Mountain. The restrictions of martial law left the American explorers isolated from the outside world. Not even a telephone.
Anyway, we're going to hang in like smell on a skunk till there's nothing left to get this done.
Hanging like the smell in a skunk. The Turkish government stopped the exploration. What now?
Since we were there, Barbara, things have cooled down, and they've sent their own team of scientists in to take a look at this site. It's a very fascinating location.
While Turkish scientists and archaeologists did their own research, Ron and his associates continued their work. The next step was subsurface interface radar.
There's the longitudinal bulkheads. You ought to see them popping out, Ron.
Yeah, there they are.
Here, there's another one. There's the keel line right there.
Yeah.
Oh, Ron, the lines are there! The lines are there.
Okay, we're going to walk over.
Yeah.
Take a look.
Leave it running so everybody knows that we're not cheating here, right?
You got it, Toby.
Okay. Now, this is the west bulkhead. Okay, can you look through there and...
All right.
This is the west bulkhead.
All right.
That was over there. And he walked easterly. Here we start getting the longitudinal bulkheads. Here, 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 here.
Okay.
You see there how it shows up?
Right.
The initial scans were very impressive, showing internal structure consistent with bulkheads and rooms. But to be sure they were interpreting the data correctly, Ron took the scan printouts to Geophysical Survey Systems, the developer and manufacturer of the radar.
This data does not represent natural geology. It's a man-made structure. These reflections are occurring very periodic, too periodic to be random natural type interface.
There was no longer any doubt that this was the remains of something man-made. In late 1986, the Turks announced their decision. The ceremony was set for June 1987. During that ceremony, the governor asked Ron to demonstrate the radar on site for the journalists and military officials. When Ron showed them a readout that he said looked like an intact timber, the governor then instructed a soldier to dig right there. What emerged was this petrified section of fossilized hand-wrought timber. Sectioning showed it to be laminated wood, 5 layers of timber glued together with pitch, clearly visible oozing from the end. This fossilized specimen shows that rivets were used in its construction. Their analysis showed that they contained iron, titanium, and aluminum, among other things, very sophisticated alloys that would be resistant to water. Specimens falling out from the lower end of the ship, identified as slag by an expert in metallurgy, indicated to Ron that Noah filled the hull with slag material from his metal production of the fittings used to build the ark. More complete radar scans revealed a ship, although damaged and collapsed in places, of very intelligent, modern design with a ramp system at the door which led to each level. In 1990, Ron performed what he called a mini-excavation, where he took shovels and bent the blades into a giant razor. He and his associates then shaved off a very thin layer from one section, smoothing it to show the color difference between the structure members and the matrix. By faith, Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world, and became heir of the righteousness which is according to faith. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be.
Okay, I only got a couple minutes in my uniform to go work. Duct tape over the name of the company I work for because I got in trouble from another company because I wore a hat with their name on it. I guess they didn't want to be associated with preaching the gospel. All right, guys. Let me see here. Yeah, this is one of the rivets right here before they cut that thing up. All right, hey, I gotta go. Spread the word, and I will see you guys